Of the 95 economists surveyed by Bloomberg, not one of them is expecting the Fed to raise rates tomorrow. But our next guest says the Fed has a great opportunity to clear up some mixed signals. Rich Clarida is with us now. He is the global strategic advisor at PIMCO, the world's largest bond fund. He's also professor of economics at Columbia University and a former assistant secretary of the Treasury for economic policy under George W. Bush. Rich, thanks so much for coming in. Always glad to have you with us. So you're not looking for a rate hike until May 2011, but the Fed could soften its language tomorrow. Is that right, especially after that disappointing payroll number?
Yes. In fact, I think the Fed will use this statement as an opportunity to change the language on current conditions. If anything, the economy softened since the last meeting, and certainly inflation is very well behaved. So I think they may adjust the language to reflect more sluggish conditions for the economy.
Now, you advise PIMCO. What would you advise the average investor right now? Where are the pockets of strength and safety?
Well, the pockets of safety are really in very simple investments, in treasuries, in inflation indexed securities, equities.
No overbought argument from you on that.
Well, right now, if you're interested in safety, that is the safe place to be, as investors have found out. I think broadly we're in an environment where there's more uncertainty. The tails, both extreme high returns and low returns, are more prevalent, and I think you need to be nimble as well. But right now, safety is in government bonds.
You mentioned the tails, of course, European debt crisis, a big part of the risk that is out there. How much has that situation changed what the Fed is doing right now in the U.S.?
I think it has a modest impact. In some ways, it's actually, in the short run, helped the Fed because of the flight to quality into the U.S. Interest rates have fallen, and that's been supportive of recovery. Longer term, if the dollar strengthens and euro stays weak, that's bad for our exports. But right now, very near term, it's been on net, I think, a positive for the U.S. because of lower rates.
Because some economists were talking about a potential Fed hike at the end of this year.
Oh, sure.
And then Europe stole a lot of headlines, and it seems, yourself included, that you've pushed out any hike until next year.
Well, no, in my case, I've not pushed out. I've always thought the Fed would not hike till 2011, so the markets have come around to my view.
All right, well, that's a nice position to be in.
Yeah.
As long as we're on the international front, of course, big news out of China yesterday, abandoning its currency peg. Interestingly enough, today, the yuan is actually moving lower. A few people said that was possible. No one really expected it. What are you advising PIMCO on this front?
Well, no, we're looking at it closely. We've thought that this year that they would allow currency adjustment. They've done so, not coincidentally, before the G20 meeting, and it's fascinating to look at the way they did it. So the first day, no change. The second day, they let the currency strengthen, but within the trading day, it actually weakened a bit. So I think they're trying to show it's going to be a two-way market. It's not going to be a one-way bet, but on average, their currency will be appreciated.
Were you surprised at the strategy, what looks like to many this sort of slow burn appreciation as opposed to a one-off, just fixing a
Excellent question, and I really wasn't surprised in that. In 2005, or when Secretary Snow, who I worked for, was working with the Chinese, they did have the one-off move on the first day and then a path of appreciation. But going into this, I and most others thought they probably would not have a dramatic one-off move. They would just allow the band to widen, and they would begin to allow that. So I think we're basically playing it par for the course.
As you just highlighted, you were working with Secretary Snow. Is it harder or easier to work with China now, would you guess, than it was during your tenure?
I would imagine that in some ways it's easier because there is more engagement and dialogue, and I think Secretary Snow deserves credit for getting that going, and it's been continued under Paulson and Geithner, the strategic dialogue. But at the same time, the issues are more complex. So I think the range of engagement is better, but I think the issues are more complex.
Rich, 10 seconds left. Would you give Geithner a passing grade for this? Would you give him an A, a B?
No. I think Geithner deserves generally high marks. I think he's under the situation that he's been facing, I think he's done a good job.
All right. From a professorial view there from Rich Clarida, Global Strategic Advisor to PIMCO.